Hi, Doug Noll here. We experience emotions all the time. But do you know what they really are? And do you know how to unlock the hidden genius of your emotions? In this video, I'm going to explain what emotions are and why they are your hidden genius. And at the end, I'll show you the path to unlocking your hidden genius. So if you're like most people, you don't give a lot of thought to your emotions unless they are intense enough to disrupt your day. You could be super excited and happy, or you could be angry, frustrated, or sad. At those times, you feel emotional. Otherwise, emotions work just outside of your consciousness, and you probably don't pay much attention to them. But here's the thing. Everything you do is affected by your emotions. Every decision you make is emotional. You can't even be rational without being emotional first. And that's kind of scary for people. Here's the thing. Neuroscience now shows us that we are 98% emotional and only 2% rational. The idea that humans are rational beings is simply wrong. And the idea that emotions are bad or weak or evil or even irrational, as many philosophers and theologians have taught us for thousands of years, is wrong too. We are emotional beings. And the good news is, our emotions are our hidden genius. When we are aware of our emotions at a granular level, we are authentic. We have self-control. We can create emotional safety. We can build deeper relationships. We can have compassion and understanding, and we are more tolerant. In short, understanding our emotional nature is the secret to happiness. So what are emotions? Not surprisingly, there is some controversy in science around the definition of emotion, but the best definition I found comes from neuroscientist and psychologist Lisa Feldman Barrett at Northeastern University in Boston. She defines emotions as biologically based patterns of perception, experience, physiology, action, and communication that are culturally created in our brains. Now, there's some interesting implications to this definition. First, we are not born with emotions. We create emotion. More on this in a moment. Second, emotions are culturally created in our brain, and they vary from culture to culture. Consider these examples. Desbundar, to shed one's inhibition in having fun. Tarab, a musically induced state of ecstasy or enchantment. Shinrin-yoku, the relaxation gained from bathing in the forest, figuratively or literally. Gigil, the irresistible urge to pinch or squeeze someone because they're loved or cherished. Yanbei, a sense of complete and perfect accomplishment. And Ixupak, the anticipation one feels when waiting for someone, whereby somebody keeps going outside to check if they're around. Third, we have the ability to develop our emotional vocabulary through a process called emotional granularity. More on this in a moment. People who are unable to label their emotions at all are said to be suffering from alexithymia. And we'll talk more about alexithymia in a moment. So where do these emotions come from? Well, we're not born with emotions. We are born with affect. And all emotion is based on affect. Affect is the general sense of feeling that we experience throughout the day, and it has two components, valence and arousal or intensity. So there are 9 basic affects, according to Sylvan Tompkins. Now, it depends on who you talk to, and this is controversial, but I like the Sylvan Tompkins model because it is so rich. There are positive affect, neutral affect, and negative affect. Positive affects are inherently rewarding. Negative affects are inherently painful, unpleasant, and punishing. And neutral affect is, well, neutral. So in positive affect, we have interest and excitement and happiness and joy. The neutral affect is startled surprise, which, as you can imagine, can either be happy, like a surprise party, or fear, like almost stepping on a rattlesnake. And then our negative affects, of which there are 6, consist of fear, distress, anguish, anger, rage, disgust, dismell, and shame, humiliation. Now, these are the 9 affects that we have. Think of these 9 affective states as the primary colors of an artist's palette. The artist combines primary colors and hues and intensities to create an infinite number of secondary colors. Our brain does the same thing. It combines the different affects and intensities to create emotion. So you can look at affect around this circle where we can have low intensity and low arousal and on a pleasant affect, and then it can circle around to where we can have an unpleasant valence and high arousal. So we have an infinite number of different combinations of intensity and pleasantness and unpleasantness. And out of all this infinite combinations, we combine them to create what we call emotion. So think of affect as information. And one of the things that you may have noticed in your life is that emotions give you information about the environment. So this is how affect works as information, coloring everything that we see, do, and experience on an hourly, minute, second-by-second basis as we go through our waking day. Affect also creates perceptions about the environment. So we can look at an environment, and if we have an affective state of, say, sadness, then the environment is going to look depressing to us. If we're really happy, the environment is going to look really alive and exciting to us. So affect changes the way that we perceive our surroundings. Affect also creates our reality. Without affect, we wouldn't be able to make sense of all of the sensory information that we take in through our 5 senses. And affect controls our behavior. It basically forces us or moves us in different directions, either to approach or to withdraw, depending upon the situation. And finally, affect drives decision-making. So our affective state is really critical. Now here's the thing that's important to understand. We are born with affect. We are not born with emotions. All animals have affect, but no animals other than humans have emotions. And in us, all emotion is based on affect. So how do we know what emotion we're experiencing? Well, we're okay at guessing what emotions other people are experiencing by looking at them. But if we're not looking in the mirror, how do we know what emotions we're experiencing? Well, a way that I teach this is to think about what is reality. Reality is either perceiver independent or it's perceiver dependent. And what does that mean? Well, think about this old Zen question. If a tree falls in the forest, is there a sound? Take a guess. Well, the answer is no. A falling tree makes no sound. Its descent creates vibrations in the air and the earth. Only if something special is present is there sound. And that something present is what we would call an ear. And so if there is a human ear present, there are vibrations that are transmitted through the air that are picked up by our ear, and electrical signals are created inside our ear that are then transmitted into the brain, and they are processed and interpreted, and finally the concept of tree emerges, and the concept of falling emerges, and the concept of sound emerges, and so we get the idea of a falling tree makes sound. But without a perceiver, there is no sound. There's only physical reality. That is, the vibrations going through the air. So emotions are likewise created by a perceiver. For example, muscle movements and bodily changes become functional as emotions only when we categorize them that way. Think about this. What are your emotions when you have a flushed face, or goosebumps, or short, fast panting, or clammy, sweaty hands, or a racing heart? These could all relate to all kinds of different emotions. In any given moment and any given context, your perception is going to be what creates an emotion out of a physical sensation. Now that leads us to the concept of emotional categorization. Emotional categorization is a process of taking all of this information from our affect and doing things with it with our brain. The first thing that emotional categorization allows us to do is to transform our core affect, those 9 affective states, into our conscious awareness. So now we can start doing something with it. If we didn't have the ability to transform core affect into consciousness, we would only be experiencing the affect and we would only be reactive to it. We would not be able to manipulate it. It also allows us to draw inferences about what caused the affective change. I can look around and say, hey, what just really pissed me off? What made me really angry? So I can draw inferences from my environment to figure out why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling. Emotional categorization also allows us to decide what we're going to do next. It informs us. When I can feel anger and label it, then I can make decisions about how I want to respond to my anger. And finally, and probably most importantly, emotional categorization allows us to communicate the state we're experiencing to other people by saying something like, I'm really angry. Emotional categorization begins at about 18 months of age, about the time that infants or toddlers start to verbalize. And as they begin to verbalize, and the emotional centers of their brain start to mature, just by the environment they're in their family life, they begin to relate affective experiences, the basic 9 affects, into more refined words and vocabulary to describe with more detail what it is they're experiencing. The problem is, and I'll go into this in another video, is that almost every human being is subject to what's known as emotional invalidation. For example, if you fall over and scrape your knee, you're told to be a big boy, grow up, put on your big girl panties. You're told not to feel. And that destroys the process of the emotional centers of the brain maturing, and so that people end up being emotionally illiterate as adults, which leads to all kinds of problems. But if you're fortunate enough to grow up in a family where you have parents who are emotional coaches, then you can develop proper emotional categorization, and you can develop what's known as emotional granularity. People with high emotional granularity tend to be emotionally self-aware, and they have higher emotional intelligence, and they tend to be able to emotionally self-regulate compared to people with low emotional granularity. So you've got low to high, so we can take a negative affect and let's just call it anger, which is also an emotion. And then we can subdivide anger into many, many different, more discrete forms, such as frustration, irritation, annoyance, or aggravation. So developing emotional granularization is one of the ways to unlock the hidden genius of your emotion. Now, I have observed in conflict as a mediator and peacemaker that people are not able to access their emotional database. Their emotions completely overwhelm them, and this is why you see people acting out and acting badly and yelling and screaming and arguing and fighting and sometimes resorting to violence. Well, what the research shows us is that there is a condition called Alexithymia. Alexithymia is the impaired ability to categorize affect into emotion. You basically can't even begin to tell somebody what you're feeling. And this happens a lot when people are in conflict. And it happens a lot when couples argue or when people get into intense emotional situations. Essentially, their prefrontal cortex shuts down, they're unable to access whatever emotional database they have, and now they are only left with affect and the reactive behaviors that flow from the experience of affect. They're basically out of control. So studies have shown that people who are alexithymic have an inability to express emotions with any kind of granularity. They cannot cope with strong emotions. They feel their affective experience in their bodies, like itchy feeling or clammy skin, that sort of thing. Without emotional categorization, decision-making is impaired. Negative affect is more intensely experienced. People that are alexithymic, even if it's temporary, have low emotional intelligence. They're much more reactive, and they have decreased empathy. The idea is to unlock your hidden genius is to have emotional granularity so that you will not, in moments of stress or high emotional intensity, drop into alexithymia, where you lose your ability to be emotionally self-aware and then from there to emotionally self-regulate. Well, my name is Doug Noll. I'm a lawyer turned peacemaker. I'm an author, speaker, trainer, and visionary. I'm the co-founder of the Prison of Peace Project, and for the last 12 years, my colleague Laurel Coffer and I and our team have been training people serving life sentences in maximum security prisons around the world to become peacemakers and mediators. And I am dedicated to helping people live fulfilled lives, which is the purpose of this YouTube channel. So if you like the information that I'm presenting in this video and the videos that follow, if you want to learn more about how to develop your own emotional skills, sign up for the Basic Emotional Competency course at https://dougnoll.co emotional-competency. And if you like this video, give me a like and subscribe to the channel.